Hi, Sanjay. Can we test your mic, please?
Hi, Sanjay Patel. Can you unmute your mic for us to test your audio?
Hi, Tammy. Can we do an audio check with you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Testing audio, check 1, 2.
Hi, Counselor Vicente. Can we test your audio, please?
I hear you, 5 by 5.
Thank you. Hi, Sanjay Patel. Can we test your mic, please? Please unmute your audio. Hi, Counselor Fatini. Can we test your mic, please?
Yes, can you hear me now? Thank
Yeah,
you.
we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, Counselor Medeiros. Can we test your audio?
Hi.
Thank you. We can hear you.
right, we're gonna get started. Call to order. As we begin today's meeting, we would like to acknowledge that we are gathering here today on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat nations who have called this land home since time immemorial. We recognize the Mississaugas of the Credit as original rights holders and the signatories of Treaty 19, the Adjutancy Purchase of 1818, and that the agreements made therein are foundational to our nation-to-nation relationship. As a city, we are committed to our ongoing role in reconciliation through meaningful action rooted in truth, justice, and respect. We are grateful to the original caretakers of this land who have assured we are able to work, play, and live in Brampton now and in the future. Good afternoon and welcome to our meeting of Brampton's Committee of Council. All members are present today with the following participating remotely are absent. I'll pass it on to the clerk to verify who is online and who is not attending.
Through you, Chair, we have Councillor Busante, Councillor Maderos, Councillor Tour, and Councillor Fortini joining us online. And Councillor Santos, Mayor Brown, and Councillor Brar will be joining us shortly.
Yes, just for the public's notice, there is an announcement being announced at TMU, and that has gone longer than scheduled, but they will be here as soon as they can be. Moving on to approval of the agenda, the following revisions have been published. 6.11 and 2, delegations on behalf of Sunfield Homes. There's correspondence and presentation added. And then staff report regarding government relations matters. The presentation has been added. Staff report regarding DC incentives for purpose-built rental housing. That has been added. Do any members have any business they wish to add? Okay, the names. Okay, Councillor Keenan, you are first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to defer item 12.3.2, the notice of motion for the seniors multipurpose room weekend access. Due to the timing, the seniors couldn't be here, and just asked that I move it to the following committee meeting.
So it's a deferral you're looking for?
Deferral, yeah.
Okay. We have a request to defer item. Which item is it?
12.3.2.
12.3.2 to next committee. Okay. Councillor Pleshy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to add a discussion item, in closed discussion item about an identifiable individual. And I've checked with legal, and we're good to go.
Okay, so we have a closed session item. I didn't see, correct me if I'm wrong, there wasn't any closed session.
There is now.
There were no closed
Yep,
session
that's
items
what I
before.
thought.
This will be item 15.1.
Yeah, okay, 15.1, so we will be going in closed. Thank you to Councillor Pleshy. And that is okay, Pleshy. And the reason was an unidentifiable individual, right? Yep, Councillor Santos.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to add an item under, I believe, other business related to the seat application process and mobile licensing bylaw. Thank you.
Do we have an idea what item that'll be? What item number? 8.1. Like about her adding it? That's a fair question. Sorry, you want to use the mic? Yeah. So once we approve it, then you can declare it in the next section, okay? But good catch, yeah. Any other approvals? Any other agenda items? Okay, I don't see any. So I have a motion moved by Councilor Pleshy to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor? Motion carries. Declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Councilor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given Councilor Santos adding the bylaw, I declared a conflict in the last meeting when the bylaw was passed. An abundance of caution, just because I own a family restaurant in the city. So I will declare the same conflict, not knowing what the result of this will be.
Okay, that will be noted for the minutes. Okay, moving on to consent committee. As part of our consent process, I will read each item that is subject to the consent motion, and any member may verbally identify the item to be held for debate during the meeting. Any item not held for debate will be considered as part of the consent motion and voted on for approval. I'll start reading the relevant agenda items, and members can identify any items to be held for debate. 7.1 staff update government relations matters. Consent. 8.4.1 will be held for delegation. 8.4.2 will be held for delegation. 10.2.1 staff report 2025 levy bylaw per section 323 of the Municipal Act 2001. Consent. 10.2.2 staff report annual public sector network update 2025. Consent. 10.2.3 staff report status of collection activities on Provincial Offences Act defaulted fines and write-off of uncollectible POA. Consent. 10.2.4 staff report status of tax collection accounts and write-offs of uncollectible taxes 2024. Consent. 10.2.5 staff report plant-based treaty update. Yep. No. 10.2.5, you're okay with consent? 10.2.6 is held anyways for delegation 6.1 and 6.3. 11.2.1 staff report request to begin procurement waste collection services for Brampton and Caledon for a period of 8 years with 2 additional 1-year option renewals. Okay, in abundance of caution, we'll hold it. Councilor Santos. Okay, 11.2.2, 11.2.3, and 11.3.1 are held. 12.3.1 minutes Brampton Community Safety Advisory Committee, June 19th, 2025. Consent. Everything else is not to be in consent. So I have a consent motion moved by Councilor that are in consent. Okay, I have, and the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong along the way, I have 7.1 staff update in consent, 10.2.1 staff report 2025 levy in consent, 10.2.2 staff report annual public sector network in consent, 10.2.3 staff report status of collection activities in consent, 10.2.4 staff report status of tax collection in consent, 10.2.5 staff report plant-based treaty in consent, and 12.3.1 minutes Brampton Community Safety Advisory Committee in consent. Okay, so I have a motion moved by Councilor Tour to approve the consent motion. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, we have one announcement today. I believe it's sponsored by Councilor Tour. It's from Martin Bowles, Sector Manager, Health and Life Sciences, Economic Development. Please come forward to the podium to make your remarks. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Singh, and good afternoon, Council. We're very pleased on the next slide to provide an update on initiatives related to health tech. The first one is really a reminder of the CBRE study that was done last year on wet labs. The feasibility report was endorsed by Council, we are now working with our very important stakeholders at TMU, at Sheridan, and other colleges and universities here in the city to identify funding and a property for that wet lab. And so this will be, in terms of the next slide, we will have the opportunity to do this work throughout the next year. Slide number, yeah, so slide number, the next one, please. This is basically our fall agenda, our announcements on various activities that are taking place in the fall. First of all, Brampton Venture Expo on September the 11th at the Rose Theater will be an opportunity for industry, healthcare, and panel discussions to take place within our innovation district. We expect about 1,000 people to participate at this event. On September 29th, we are very pleased to host with Life Sciences Ontario the first day of their regional tour. This will start at City Hall with a panel presentation, again with industry and with our innovation stakeholders, followed by a tour of Peel Memorial Hospital, Sheridan Community Center, as well as the new medical school. And everyone is aware here that today was the announcement of the new medical school, a very exciting day. 176 students that are starting their journey to become a medical doctor in this city and beyond. In October, we are looking forward to holding another roundtable with the industry of life sciences and medtech in the city, along with Brampton Board of Trade, to understand more how the industry can participate in not only in the Innovation District, but also in the wet lab and other events. We're also attending the MedTech conference in San Diego to promote MedTech on the global scale. Our MedTech Task Force meeting on November the 13th will be a culmination of all these activities. And very importantly, the last item, November 17th, we will start with the Mayor's proclamation of Health Research Week with our colleagues at Osler. And this will not only take place at City Hall, but will be an opportunity for the community to engage on health research. And the very last slide, thank you very much to all of our stakeholders. Toronto Metropolitan University as co-chair with Deputy Mayor Singh on the MedTech Task Force. You can see our colleges and universities, Brampton Board of Trade, our development community, and other partners, including Boston Scientific, Sun Pharma, and other companies and organizations. Thank you very much. It's an exciting time to be in MedTech in the city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin, for the delegation, and certainly that's the reason why many of us are late this morning, was the incredible announcement of the opening of the TMU Medical School. And it's not just about the medical school, it's about the second hospital, it's about the MedTech Task Force that Deputy Mayor Singh is chairing, and all of the economic development partners we see on the screen, and of course the economic development team. So thank you very much. We are going from, we're certainly representing the city very well and trying to go as quickly as possible when it comes to accessing good health care in our city. Thank you. Any questions from council? I have Deputy Mayor Singh.
Thank you, and I just wanted to acknowledge the hard work of the economic development team, including yourself, including Denise, to help build a roadmap for MedTech in the future. And looking at the stakeholders, you see how powerful the task force is. I want to thank my colleagues who are also on there, Councillor Gorpatov Tour, who is also the chair, Councillor Santos, and Councillor Pleshy. It's been great to work alongside many of these stakeholders, especially our academic partners. We've come a long way. I hope we'll have some of our announcements ready by our final meeting. We have a lot of things in motion, and that's a testament to the hard work. And thank you. I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to our final meeting at the end of this year.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Martin, and of course the chair of the MedTech Task Force, Deputy Mayor Singh, for doing a phenomenal job. The next item on the agenda is, I believe, a delegation 6.1. Madam Clerk, 6.2. 6.1. Two delegations under 6.1 regarding Sunfield Homes affordable housing projects related to item 10.2.6 DC incentives to purpose-built rental. We first have Jenna Tebow, associate, and Sarah Bourgeois, planner, Western Consulting. You have up to 5 minutes. Welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Before I get into my presentation, I will try to keep it to 5 minutes, but I was just wondering if I could have permission for an additional minute in case the presentation goes over.
I think 1 minute should be okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Jenna Tebow. I'm an associate with Weston Consulting, and I'm making this deputation on behalf of Sunfield Homes. This is a deputation about an opportunity to bring affordable rental housing to the city. Next slide, please. Sunfield Homes is a for-profit company with over 40 years of national and international development experience. They've built over 5,000 homes in the Greater Toronto Area. Next slide, please. Sunfield Homes also has experience with affordable housing. In Simcoe County, they have a development called Sunfield Village, which they currently manage, which includes a mix of affordable and at-market rental units. This development was funded in 2015 by a federal grant under the Investment in Affordable Housing Initiative. Next slide, please. Changes in the market are currently posing challenges for selling residential units. Currently, Sunfield Homes has 78 residential units in 3 different sites in the city of Brampton, which they are unable to sell at market rates. And so Sunfield Homes, rather than leaving these sites undeveloped, wants to take this opportunity to work with the region and the city to deliver much needed affordable rental housing. The intent here would be to set the rates at the value set out by the Provincial Residential Units Bulletin and to keep the units affordable for a minimum of 25 years. Next slide, please. So the image on this slide shows the 3 development sites where these 78 residential units are located. As you can see, they are in different geographic areas. Generally, they're within central Brampton on the east and west side of Highway 410 in close proximity to Queen Street. Next slide, please. There are several key features about these 3 development sites which make them ideal locations for affordable rental units. To start off, as I mentioned, there's 78 units proposed in 3 different geographic areas. As well, a unique feature of these developments is that they prioritize family-sized units in a low-rise built form, as there are several units with 3 and 4 bedrooms proposed. The developments are also in a great location, as they're within proximity of community amenities, transit, and essential services. In terms of the planning approvals process, these sites are all well advanced as it relates to the site plan approval process. 2 sites are already fully serviced with building permit applications submitted, and 1 site is expected to be site plan approved within 90 days with building permits to follow thereafter. Construction and occupancy is anticipated within approximately 12 to 18 months. I'd also like to reiterate that Sunfield Homes is a for-profit developer, and they want to use this proposal as an opportunity to invest and keep invested a substantial amount of capital for 25 years in order to help support the need in Brampton for affordable rental units. Next slide, please. So this is the first site located at Church Street East. It proposes a total of 26 units in a stacked townhouse built form and within 2 semi-detached dwellings. Next slide, please. This proposal proposes a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units, and for this site, full building permits have been submitted and are anticipated to be ready in 30 days. Next slide, please. The second site is located at McMurtry Avenue South. This is a 15 2-unit townhouse development that will include a mix of 1 and 3 bedroom units. Next slide, please. For this site, full building permits are anticipated to be ready by this fall. Next slide, please. And the third site is located at Dixie Road, and it proposes 2-unit semi-detached dwellings and includes a mix of 1 and 4 bedroom units. Next slide. And for this project, They're still waiting for the site plan agreement to be issued, so in terms of building permits, it's anticipated that they would be ready by spring of next year. Next slide. We are aware that the City of Brampton has some affordable housing programs, such as the CIP Affordable Housing Capital Grant Program. Based on our review of this program, this proposal does meet the eligibility criteria. Next slide, please. So to conclude, I want to indicate, as already discussed in this presentation, that this is a really great opportunity for the city to see market housing converted to high quality affordable rental housing. It's also a unique opportunity to prioritize family sized units in a low rise built form, given the number of 3 and 4 bedroom units proposed. And so our ask of the Committee of Council is to direct city staff to work with Sunfield Homes to explore potential supports and tools, including affordable housing funding opportunities, to develop these 78 affordable rental units. Next slide. And I also want to indicate that there has been some discussions with the Commissioner at the Region of Peel, and a letter of support has been provided, which is shown on this slide. Next slide. So thank you, committee. That was a bit loud. Thank you, committee, for listening to this presentation. And I also want to note that I have Larry Lecce, the president of Sunfield Homes, along with my colleague Sarah Bergeau here in attendance, and they're available to assist me with answering any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know there is another delegation. Just want to confirm, is Larry Lecce here from Yes, you are. You're planning to delegate next, correct? Oh, you're
He's not planning to delegate. We just submitted the form so that he would be able to answer any questions.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you for doing that. Okay, so then I have questions on the board. I have, Councillor Keenan, Councillor Pelleschi, followed by Councillor Power. Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for your delegation, and you know, we're doing a lot here at the city on affordable housing, and it is good to see development partners bringing this type of stuff to the forefront now. It's no secret here around this room that I grew up in affordable rental, so I'm definitely somebody that is for it in every way, shape, and form. And when I look across these projects, I think of the kids that get to have a home that's affordable, and for me that's huge. The pride to be able to bring, you know, your friends over and not be stuck up in a condo, or, you know, you're offering something here that I haven't seen. I don't think many people have seen affordable 4-bedroom. And can you just tell me, how many square feet is the 4-bedroom house that you're offering up for affordable rental?
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Keenan. Some of these units go up to 3,000 square feet. Most of them are in the 24 to 2,800 square foot in size.
Wow.
For 3 and 4-bedroom units.
Wow. So kudos to you and your team, and because I think that's amazing. Another question is, say everything lines up for you in funding, is there, how quick would these houses become available?
So we are, as was presented, we are ready to start building as soon as building permits are released, which are expected within the next 60 to 90 days outside. Occupancy is within 12 to 14 months after that.
Wow, so quick. So that's amazing news. The main, obviously we have some things on the agenda today which may help with funding. So at the appropriate time, I know there are other speakers, I'd like to refer this to staff to work with the delegation to see what funding is available and bring that back to council. But I'll yield to my colleagues. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Councillor Keenan. Next up, we have Councillor Pelleschi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the delegation. I really love a lot about it. Jenna, love the fact that you're on the file. We see each other a lot on Monday nights, so thank you for coming. Thanks for being on this file. You've certainly picked an excellent planner. Love the concept in the one slide. Love the idea. Love that timeline, and I love the square footage that you're showing there. I'm going to run into something that I don't love: back-to-back stacks. That's what I don't love. People that live in them hate them. I I've talked to the ones that Mattamy built out in the area that we represent, and everybody in there hates them. I thought I put a motion forward that said no more back-to-back stacks in the city of Brampton, and if I haven't officially, I'm going to. If there's anything that you can do to change that, it would be much appreciated, because just so you know, it's horrible being in there and listening to kind of everybody else that's going on in the houses around you. Now, I know what it's like living in townhouses. Grew up living in a townhouse, heard my neighbors, but then when you get somebody on top of you, and then you get somebody also behind you, and then the stairs and moving, if there's something that can be done, great, and I'm happy to. I'll leave that as a question for you.
Absolutely, thank you. Stacked townhouses have been a problem in different municipalities. What we've done on this one is, to your point of noise, we've instituted a block wall between the back-to-back units. So now you're going to have a block wall with insulation on either side of it. So that should eliminate, all but eliminate, noise, vibration between units back-to-back. Of course, you're still going to have the up and down vertical noise. But there are only 2 units that way. Usually back-to-back stacked townhomes have 3 units vertically. So we've tried to minimize that as much as we could.
So if there's anything else that, like block walls carry sound, with some insulation though, I think it depends on the way you're designing, and probably can mitigate a lot of the noise, a lot more than other builders have done in the city. Just throwing that up as a caution, but as of right now, really like the process of where you guys are going, and look forward to seeing if we can get you some of that funding to build and get people off of the list.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Councillor Palishi. Councillor Power.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say that I love the idea, and Councillor Keenan brought it to me and had said that he had a meeting, and it's just, this is what we need in the city. We need people to look at different solutions and different ways to go about things, and I'm really interested in that Dixie Road project to see how it goes. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Power. And I see no further questions or comments on the board. I will say that I'm also very supportive of the work you're doing, and thank Councillor Keenan for bringing this forward. I know he has a motion coming up next. Councillor Keenan, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just to refer this delegation to staff to come with any funding opportunities for this, and to work with the delegation and then report back to council.
Thank you so much. That's a referral back to staff. I got a nod from the commissioner. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 6.2, a delegation from Sanjay Patel, Brampton resident, petition and community concerns regarding bylaw 78-2024 ASC cameras and bylaw 86-2025 parking regulations. Is Sanjay here? Sanjay is
I've
online.
turned my video on. I
Okay.
hope you guys can hear me and see me well. Yeah,
Thank you. Go ahead,
right.
Sanjay. You have up to 5
perfect.
minutes.
Perfect. And if I take a little bit of time, I think it's okay as well, right? If I take a bit of extra?
No, we have 5 minutes delegation, but if you request 1 additional minute, similar to the previous delegation, we can allow you 1 extra minute. So total maximum.
Yeah, I'll
6
just
minutes.
request 1 extra minute just in case.
Okay,
but,
1
it shouldn't
minute.
be that long.
1 minute extra. Thank you. The clerk will notify you when you
Perfect.
have 1 minute left.
For sure. Thank you. So, hello, everyone. Thank you for, first of all, listening. Today's subject, as was pointed out, residents' concerns over speed enforcement and parking bylaws. And something else that we also put forward in a letter was public accessibility to council decisions. But that's not something I'll be speaking too much on today. So next slide, please. And so just to kind of highlight the core issues and concerns in the letter that we had put forward towards the city of Brampton, the first thing was unreasonable parking enforcement, specifically talking about bylaw changes for 86-2025. So this bylaw change was actually very poorly worded, and it was very, very vague. In addition to this, it actually doesn't really provide any true value to the community. And then also on top of this, the bylaw change was not transparent. And in fact, as you'll see later on, many people that I had talked with, they did not even know that this bylaw was amended, changed in any way, shape, or form until they got slapped with a fine. The second point I'd like to make is there's an overuse of speed cameras coupled with speed limit changes. So there are multiple areas where they've been specifically designed to be a speed trap. And this is, of course, generating the city of Brampton lots of revenue, but this is not really helping with the safety on the road. And the other point I'd like to point out for number 2 is that there are inconsistent speed limits, which again are intentionally there to lead drivers to be very confused in terms of what speed limits are they actually going to be having to see, like what is the speed limit, and increases the chances of them getting tickets. The third point in the letter was council meeting, so specifically the times that are being hosted. So for example, I travel 3 hours to and from work, all round trip, and I work 8 to 10 hours a day. Council meetings typically end up being between 9 till 5. With this omits a lot of people who live in the city of Brampton, and considering this as our community, I think it's important that we actually have the opportunity to participate without having to, say, for example, like me, take over my lunch break. And then point 4 is misaligned spending. So the city of Brampton, as we all know, there is an affordability crisis, and this is no doubt that this exists in the city of Brampton as well. And it seems that the city of Brampton continues to transfer a lot of these cost burdens onto the residents. And they also have frivolous spending, which doesn't quite make sense. So, for example, they spent recently $70 million on a building, which was mainly there for fine processing and office space. And of course, now they need to generate enough fines to make it worth the time. So next slide, please. But the points 3 and 4, I'm not going to be focusing as much on. I just really want to emphasize the first 2 points, which I also did submit a petition for. So the parking bylaw change and the overuse of speed cameras, and they're coupled with the speed limit changes. So we'll go on to the next one, please. So the first one I'd like to talk about is bylaw change 86-2025, and this is a change for the parking enforcement. So just to emphasize, the point of bylaws is that they're supposed to be used as a tool to ensure the safety of the community. That's what they are meant for. But this bylaw change that recently occurred in the middle of May for 86-2025, not only has it been vague, it doesn't really regulate with interest for the community, because we are already in a city where parking is fairly limited, and this bylaw essentially removes any safe parking spot that we do have. Second, there is a very clear lack of support for this bylaw, specifically the new change that occurred in May. So it seems like the city councilors did not pay attention to this, I don't think, because I have a petition where 100% of people say that this bylaw should not have been changed and that it should be allowed to be, parked. Point number 3, so it seems like these fines have been implemented solely for the purpose to generate additional revenue for the city of Brampton. So it's coupled with a $75 fine. Of course, if it's parked safely and it's not encroaching in the general safety of the community, it should be allowed. Point number 4, so the recent change in the bylaw that occurred in mid-May, again, it was nobody really knew it occurred until it was too late and they got slapped with a $75 fine. This is directly showing that it wasn't really a safety concern. It was more so a revenue generating method for the city of Brampton. And so what I call for is that the bylaw amendment for 86-2025 to be repealed and allow people or residents of the city of Brampton to use their property safely and park their vehicles. So we can go to the next.
You have about 1 minute left.
Yep, not a problem. So next one, please. The next one is for bylaw 78-2024, the removal of the speed cameras. There's inconsistent speed limits throughout the city, and there's no defined allowance for speed. This makes it so that it's less about community safety and more about revenue generation. Next, speed cameras take about 2 to 4 weeks for us to get tickets, and so there is no real immediate change, and this is not about community safety then. There are many systems like speed tables, signage, flashing lights, etc. that can have immediate corrective action opposed to this speed cameras. The third point is the lack of revenue transparency and how the funds are used. So even this was implemented in 2024, but no one really knows where those funds are, at least the general population does not. Next slide, please. And so one thing I'd like to do is I always like to look at numbers. So just going to the City of Brampton's proposed budget in 2025,
Sanjay,
they
I'm
said
sorry,
that,
we're out of time. That was with your extra.
would I be able to just, could I just do
Yes.
a few
Thank
more
you.
seconds?
Thank you, Sanjay. Appreciate that, but we only allowed it 1 extra minute for the other delegation, and so we're going to maintain consistency as we have started committee of council a bit later today due to the announcement. So thank you very much for your delegation. Do any members of council have any question for Sanjay at this time? Seeing none, I have a motion from Councillor Power to receive the delegation. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you, Sanjay, for your delegation.
No problem.
The next item on the agenda is a delegation 6.3 from Sylvia Roberts, Brampton resident. And Sylvia, oh, I apologize. One thing I needed to do, I think I'd like to also, if committee of council is okay, receive the correspondence 8.4.1 and 8.4.2, which has to do essentially with the delegation from 6.2. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries. Next is 6.3, delegation from Sylvia Roberts. Hi, Sylvia. You have, it looks like, 3 items to delegate on today?
Yes, they're all completely unrelated.
They're all completely unrelated. Okay, so your first one is about 10.2.6 regarding DC incentives for purpose-built rental.
Yes. Hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. As on the proposal for the DC incentives. Next slide, please. So this is the breakdown of unit composition in Brampton. As you can see, 3 or more bedroom units in Brampton make up the vast majority of units. That was the last census. Next slide, please. Since then, we've actually seen a growth mostly in the 4-bedroom category. So this is of all units overall. If you look online for rentals, there are still a significant amount of 3 and 4-bedroom or more units available for rent. And staff is correct in saying we don't really need to have the mixed income, the mixed use stuff. If you look at most markets in North America, when councils really start pushing that, you will end up with a building where there's a commercial space on the floor that is then vacant for 5 or 10 years, which does not really help the neighborhood. The push for trying to make it so specifically for 3 or more bedrooms, the reality is if you are talking about a high-rise format, so concrete based, you simply cannot build a 3-bedroom unit that is cheaper than renting a house. If you have a choice between a 3-bedroom apartment and a 4-bedroom house, where the 4-bedroom house is 500 square feet more and has a backyard and is $300 a month cheaper, how many people are going to pick the apartment that is smaller and has no yard and costs more money? The reality is we also need a huge amount of 2-bedroom units. If you look at Toronto Region Real Estate Board, you will notice Brampton has very little rental activity. We have a shortage of every single category. This includes 1 and 2 bedrooms. So for example, Brampton has 300% more population than Oshawa, and it has approximately 30% more rentals. If you look at Mississauga, they have 9 times as many rentals as Brampton does in activity. There is literally every single category of rentals in Brampton that we are short. If you try to make it so, we should make it focused, we can try to get more 3 bedrooms instead of 2 bedrooms, the reality is what you end up is with less rentals overall, and we also need a huge amount of 2-bedroom rentals. As such, I would recommend the option that has a much lower step between the 3 and the 4 bedrooms, which is option 2. Staff is right that option 1 has serious issues, but option 3 also adds complexity and is likely to reduce the overall amount of rentals in all categories. Because in many cases, what pencils in Brampton is mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. If you're talking about the high-rise form factor, if you're talking about low-rise like the delegation earlier, you absolutely can deliver 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms. But if you really want that, what you need to do is sit down with developers that are building a greenfield and say, okay, You have a proposal for townhouses. Can we work on adding it and making it so there's like a townhouse rental neighborhood? I live in Peel Village. There are several townhouse complexes around Peel Village that were designed as rental townhouses. You 100% can make that work, but not in a high-rise form factor. And it's much easier to deliver that in greenfield developments. So I'd recommend you pick option 2 for this when you consider that item. Thank you. That's my delegation.
Thank you so much for your delegation, Sylvia. No questions on the board. Motion from Councillor Keenan to receive the delegation. All in favor, anyone opposed, that carries. Your next item for delegation, Sylvia, I believe is on the topic of request to begin procurement of maintenance services for traffic light signals for a 3-year period.
Sure. Okay. So hi, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I'm a resident of Ward 3. So for this, I would like the city to some information from the city on how we're doing this. In many European cities, we see much more aggressive use of traffic transit signal priority. If you look at some places like the Netherlands where we have our Zoom style, basically they never see a red light. There are ways to optimize this, even for arterial routes like the 7 Kennedy or Dixie. They have it set up so that they would almost never see red lights, and they use transit signal priority. As of right now, I've talked to staff. We only use transit signal priority for Zoom, and we only do it if the bus is running significantly late. So here's an example. For Steeles, the bus runs every 7.5 minutes, and the bus only gets transit signal priority if it's running at least 5 minutes late. This means you will regularly get cases where there's 2 buses that are back to back. The first one pulls up, everyone crowds onto that, and then approximately 60 seconds later, the second bus pulls up, and the first bus just pulled off the people. So then the first bus gets the next stop, and then it's now super crowded, so people are trying to fight to pull off, and you get the second bus behind it that is now continuously just right behind it, and there's huge crowding issues. This actually costs the city a significant amount of money. If the city worked on improving transit signal priority, it would be very easy for the city to find a 4%, it would not be very difficult for Brampton Transit to find a 4% savings in terms of operations. That might not sound like a lot, but if you remember the budget, Brampton Transit's budget is $240 million. So 4% is $10 million. And I think finance could say, yes, $10 million would actually be a decent amount of money, especially if you can come up with that on an ongoing basis. So it may cost some money in implementing a more aggressive transit signal priority, but there's potentially significant amount of savings. The other advantage is when the bus is really unreliable, this pisses off customers. And they're like, I am fed up with this. I'm going to go buy a car, which means now not only have you not getting the revenue from that, but now there's an additional car on the road causing traffic and congestion, making everyone's trips slower. Additionally, this means you're adding new drivers on the road. If you look at the risk profile, new drivers are the riskiest category. If you make transit faster, more people will take it, and the people who take it are less likely to move off. This means gradually you can remove the amount of inexperienced drivers, making the average driver more experienced. So not only does it make transit faster, not only does it make it more reliable as a regular service, you also reduce the amount of crashes per capita. And I think we have more than enough car crashes in Brampton, and reducing the amount of car crashes would make everyone happier. Additionally, how much slower does traffic go when there's car crashes? It makes things a lot worse. So it's not just regular day-to-day, but it also reduces all the congestion from the enormous amount of constant crashes that I see in Brampton. So it's something to consider in that, and the report doesn't detail stuff like that. This may require a deeper rethink. The good news is the contract is not for an enormous amount of time, so this may be something that the city doesn't deal with this contract, but reflects, and when you go for your next contract, you'll have a more thought-out plan for executing that. Thank you. That's my delegation.
Thank you so much. Sylvia, I see no questions from members of committee. Motion from Councillor Brar to receive the delegation. All in favor. Anyone opposed, that carries. Thank you, Sylvia. Next item on the agenda was government relations, which was put into.
Hold on, please put your.
Oh, I apologize. The third delegation, Sylvia. About 11.2.3, recommendation to update the transition date for transfer of waste collection services to October 1st, 2027.
All right, yes. So unlike the previous one, which is a 3-year period as your baseline, this is for 8 years. So it is much more important that your contract actually properly sets things out, because if you want to change something within that 8-year period, that costs serious money. So what I would like to know is, will the new contract going out allow provisions so Brampton can charge solid waste management fees? If you look at the city of Toronto, they actually charge people for the amount of trash. In Brampton, people say, oh, well, Toronto has a much lower property tax rate. And that's true. And part of how they do that is they charge you for solid waste management. In Brampton, you pay for your hydro, you pay for your water. For reasons I have not figured out, you don't pay for your trash. This also causes issues, because if the trash bins are free and I get a second unit, this means it's very difficult to get another bin, because you may have a 4-bedroom house, say it's a bungalow, and then you go to the city and you apply for a permit and you get a legal ADU. And because there isn't a mechanism to pay for that, the city's like, no, you only get one trash bin, even though there's now legally permitted 8 bedrooms for that property. And I'm going to be honest, one trash bin for 8 units, not so great. If you have an actual payment mechanism, then, because the city doesn't need to fight with them over, well, it's free, so we don't want to give you another bin, they can just pay the additional money to get a second bin. If you look at the management fees in Toronto, this actually works out to a significant amount of money. So the smallest bin that we have, that Toronto has, they charge $372. For the largest bin we have, they charge $585.89. So, if you look at when we do our infrastructure reports from finance, you will notice, for example, just transportation services, there is a $360 million gap that we need to come up with the money for over 10 years. That is a single category of that. That's $36 million a year. You need to come up with some place to find that. And that means you need to actually deliver 2 or even 3% infrastructure levies each year for 10 years if you actually want to start closing those gaps. One of the other ways you can do that without needing to say, your property taxes have to go up by 4% a year for the next 10 years, is you can do things like charging for solid waste management. In Toronto, they didn't do this overnight where it's, congratulations, here's your $600 bill for trash. They phased it in over time. And one of the other advantages is, if you actually pay a $200, $300 difference between the smallest and largest bin, this actually encourages you to do a thing called recycle and actually make sure you're recycling, which reduces the overall amount of trash going out and reduces costs to the city. So I would like to know from staff, will the new contract allow the city to charge fees for this, or is that something entirely separate and the contract can go out as proposed and we can do this later and discuss it later and look at it? Because for an 8-year built-in contract, that's going to be quite a while until you actually get to revisit it. And finance could probably appreciate the city coming up with an extra $30 million in the budget. $30 million is a lot of money and funds a lot of infrastructure. That basically closes your transportation gap right there. So I just want to know from staff, does the contract allow it? If not, maybe it's worth considering. Thank you. That's my delegation.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. I apologize that I forgot the third one. Motion from Councillor Tour to receive the delegation. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thanks, Sylvia. Next item is government relations, which was put into consent. The correspondence in legislative services was put into consent. So there are no other items unless, Madam Clerk, procedurally I need to ask if there are any questions.
There are no questions online at this time, Chair.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is economic development. That's nothing in economic development. The next item on the agenda is corporate services, which is chaired by Councillor Barr. Councillor Barr. Thank you. So the added item was added to legislative services, 8.3.1, added by myself. My apologies, I thought it was under corporate services. And so this discussion item is in regards to the new application process for special events. Oh yes, Councillor Keenan is leaving due to, out of abundance of caution, conflict of interest. So this is an amendment to the mobile licensing bylaw as well as the application process for the SEAT special events application process, which was just implemented this year. We've had a number of organizations and events come to us with some issues related to the new SEAT application process. And of course, we have the Jazz Festival, which is a marquee festival in the city of Brampton, as well as the Brampton Latin Association Festival that's coming up next weekend. And they are finding a lot of issues in trying to get their events, particularly with their vendors, because of the new application process. And I want to thank the protocol office team as well as the communications team at the city of Brampton for doing a great job. And as I mentioned, I was briefed on this new SEAT application process many months ago. And when staff asked me, are there any questions? I said, I don't have any right now, but I know for sure that when we implement this, we're going to get a lot of questions and probably a lot of issues. And that's the thing about new things that we are implementing at the city of Brampton. Nonetheless, because some of those concerns have been raised, and there are issues related to vendors being able to participate in these major events at the city, I've been working with the mayor, councillor, not councillor, but the staff at the city of Brampton as well, in order to draft a motion that will hopefully deal with some of those concerns from the organizations who have events for the remainder of the year. And Madam Clerk, if you don't mind, if you could bring up that draft motion. And we have some revisions here that are included from feedback from staff. So moved by myself that staff be directed to bring forward an amending bylaw to include, this is different. Yeah, so it's the second one. Therefore be it resolved that the SEAT application process for the remainder of the year allow for the grace period to be extended for the remainder of 2025 as it relates to the level 2 criminal record check requirement for food vendors, given the tight timelines and administrative barriers. So just on this for now, for my council colleagues to know, there was a 45-day grace period. And unfortunately, in this particular case, some of the cases for the events for the rest of the year, they missed that grace period. And in order to get this level 2 criminal record check, it takes, I believe, up to 6 weeks, which means many of these food vendors who would otherwise have participated are not going to be able to participate this year, which is essentially just to extend the grace period accordingly. And that a reconsideration of the business registration number requirement, allowing sole proprietors and micro businesses without incorporation of GST or HST registration to participate by providing alternative documentation like their master business license number. And from what I understand, there are many sole proprietors who are not incorporated because they are essentially micro businesses and don't have the necessary requirements that are inside the SEAT application process as it is. And so bumps along the way as we implement this new process. And in talking to Madam Clerk, I'd like to actually revise the second bullet to say that staff report back to council next week with any bylaw requirement changes as part of a reconsideration of business registration number. Okay, if that works. And then the other two amendments are that other improvements to the seat application process be considered with changes to be implemented in 2026, and that the updated process be communicated to all organizations who have hosted events in Brampton over the past year. And I have Commissioner Tamming with any feedback.
Thanks, Councillor. Sorry, just one small edit, just instead of seat application, have it say special event permit application.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Thanks.
So you want us to spell that out? So be it resolved that the special event permit,
Just on that second last line, or sorry, the third last line where it just says the seat acronym, just have it say special event permit application.
okay. That other improvements to the special event application permit process, is that correct, Jason? Yeah. That other improvements to the special event permit application process be considered. Okay, I'm getting nods, that's correct. Okay. Any questions from members of council on this motion? Mayor Brown.
Yes, I just wanted to speak to that and say that I absolutely support this. I have heard concerns from the Fiesta Extravaganza, the Nigerian Festival, and now the Brampton Latin Festival about this has made putting on their events near impossible. And so I think the grace period will give us time to figure this out. There are massive delays, I know, from the police board in terms of criminal record checks. Because the provincial background checks got delegated to the local police, and so there's a wait time we're dealing with to try to make sure that that is reduced. But for these small not-for-profit events, unfortunately, these requirements are putting them on the verge of not being able to host. And knowing these events from past years, these are great community events, and I think this gets us through for the short haul, but I hope we can find a fix for this permanently. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Brown, who flagged this for all of us yesterday. All right, all those in favor, anyone opposed? That carries. All right, I believe now that is it then for Legislative Services, Madam Clerk, and there are no questions from the public or members of committee. I will now pass it over for Corporate Services to Chair Navjeet Kaur Brar.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Santos. Now we'll move on to our corporate services section. Our next item is 10.2.6, staff report, DC Centers for purpose-built rental housing. Do any members have any questions or comments regarding the staff report? I see Councillor Paleshi. Councillor Paleshi, you have the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't sure if there was a presentation. I guess there was no, which I'm good with. But I wasn't sure what council wanted to do. I expect to hear from the mayor about this one, as he's the one that's been championing it and talking about it. I understand that there's a motion. Also, maybe I guess what I wanted to ask was more related to the levels of discounts for the purpose built. So I think there was 50% for one bedroom. Is it 50% for bedroom? For 2-bedroom, and then 75% for 3-bedroom. Was that? And so why wouldn't, or is that 100 for 3-bedroom?
Through
the chair through to you, Councilor Pellicci, it's 100%.
Why don't we do like a 50, 75, 100 then? Why the 50, 50 for bedroom one and two bedroom? And then the 100 for bedroom three, which I actually like, because, you know, when you're talking about three bedroom, you know, fingers crossed, you're talking about kids, hopefully getting into bedrooms, and which is definitely a good thing. So I'm not sure why we're not thinking that, and maybe that's a question to throw out.
Through the chair, through to you, Councilor Pellicci. Post the workshop, staff had the opportunity to do some further analysis with finance staff, and the option before you today, in staff's mind, was the right balance between trying to provide that variety of housing and then mitigate any financial impact with the loss of DCs. But certainly, if there's a desire from council to continue looking at that further with managing that risk, in my professional opinion, I'd say that, you know, the outcome is still the same, and, you know, we're not getting any DCs now, so there may be a desire from council to look at that.
So I really don't like when we're making, you know, decisions around the potential risk. You know, I have the stats. I'll tell you what the risk is. The risk is nothing's happening. That's the risk. 0 plus 0 is still 0. So all to the finance staff, 0 plus 0 is still 0. Nothing's coming in. So if it's not coming in, regardless what we do. So I look forward to hearing maybe other members of council. I think I would support maybe a 50, 75, 100. But I'd also like to see what we can do in terms of the DC bylaw update. When do we think that will be completed by?
Through the chair, through to you, to Councilor Pellicci, we're hoping to bring back the bylaw update before the end of this month, September. So the full program would be brought forth on the September 24th council meeting for ratification.
There's a process though that you have to go through, right?
Yeah, through the chair, we'll defer to the treasurer to just remind council on the process to quickly update that.
Please, Nash. There's the public process. You gotta hit the button.
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor, there has been an amendment recently where the whole process has been simplified, so we will not have to do all the previous steps that we needed to do, and that will allow us to bring it by the end of September.
That's the bill. Which bill is that? Bill 107.
Which bill?
Through the chair, Bill 17.
Bill 17. It talks about DC bylaw updates in general.
So, through the chair, any reductions in DCs or exemptions do not require DC study amendment.
Excellent.
And the public meetings.
Okay, thank you. And I think we received this a while ago, and I asked kind of for updated, and I think it's what we've all kind of received in previous. And the mayor and I were just talking about this last week. It's where we sit in terms of our DCs compared to other municipalities. And when I thought that we were all that we were competitive, it certainly shows me that we're not so much competitive these days. When we sit at 67,000 per single detached home, Mississauga's 51,000, Vaughan is 50,000, and then it goes equally down from there for townhouses, large apartments, and small apartments. Mississauga with their discount sitting at 25,000 with a 50% reduction. Vaughan hasn't done a reduction. They were the first one to do their reduction, which they were really, really high, but they've come down $17,000 lower than us in the singles. So what I'd like to see if we can do is tag on some kind of DC relief, and not the way the region did it, where we don't know what it's going to cost us. We don't know anything. We just did it. Not we. We fought it. We walked out. We tried our hardest to, you know, keep it from happening when Mississauga tried to do what they wanted to do for their friends down south. We always ask the question, what's this going to cost us? And nobody at the region could tell us, because we were throwing it out there to say, hey, anybody that wants to build in the region appeal, you're going to get a reduction, and it doesn't matter what, you know, you've done in the past and what you're going to do. So we can never actually locate those true costs. What I'd like to do is say, pick the number of, I think 5,000 units is a good number right across the city. It's not high, it's not low, it's certainly not what being built right now. But I'd like to say 5,000 units across the city, get a reduction in DCs. What that reduction is on top of the regional reductions, in terms of a timeline, and also they need to be fully serviced, they need to be registered currently. If you're registered currently and fully serviced, then that tells me your lots are sitting there, you're not selling because of the market here today. That's what it comes down to. So it's not being sold right now today because of the market that's out there. This is some kind of stimulus that we actually have control of. And then on top of, I'd like to hear from staff, what other contingencies should we have in place? Does the house has to be occupied within a timeline. What that timeline is, I'd like to hear from staff. I would think a year, but I'm not sure. But I'd like to have what that comes forward. How we determine who gets the units, I'd put that out to the industry. I'd ask staff to put together, itemize what needs to be in place. Like, needs to be plug and play. Needs to be registered right there. No other. Needs to not have any conditions on it. It needs to be registered currently as of yesterday. Just me talking about this. I know we're not going to implement it right now, but I'd like to get, some information from staff for sure about it. And then the occupancy within 1 year. The occupancy through one of the other bills, the province said that you can defer DCs to occupancy, correct? So that's already a good starter for implementing that. But I'd like to say, to put it out to the industry to say, if you follow all of these guidelines, then put your best foot forward to say how many units you want. And essentially, and we can also say, if you're building, let's say you get 100 units, but you don't get 100 units at the reduced rate, you get 100 units at the reduced rate, but you also have to promise X number of units. So when we're talking about 5,000, say 25% of DC reduction across 5,000 units, you're talking about like $100 million essentially is what you're talking about. What you're not talking about is $250 million that could potentially be coming in as well. So kind of offsetting that. But I'd like to see if we can tag on to the motion that's being brought forward, to see if we can have staff go put something together and have this additionally also ready for council to vote on prior to the DC bylaw update. So I know that was a lot. I can. This is committee. I can get when we move this today. We can move it based on what I and maybe other members of council are thinking, and then we can add that to council next week. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pelletier. Commissioner?
Through the chair, through to you, to Councillor Pelletier, certainly we'll take that back as direction. Just for clarity, this would be an additional program in and above.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councillor Pelletier. Now we have Councillor Santos on board. Sorry, we have Mayor Brown.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ganesh, for this work. I think you did an excellent deep dive into this. I say, first of all, I agree with Councillor Pelletier. I think that would be very valuable. Maybe that could be an additional item that we ask for the staff report to look at how that would work. And that could come back at the time when we have the DC bylaw review. I think comparing with all other municipalities and seeing that chart for all of council to look at, and then how to pay for it. And obviously, I got to wear my budget hat for each one of these conversations. The reason I've been intrigued about purpose-built rentals is it's a different conversation on payment. I know we're in a housing crisis for every type of housing. What I found interesting about this conversation around purpose-built rentals, we have an acute need in the city. One of the reasons we have this basement apartment challenge is because there's an inadequate supply of housing. And I know Councillor Keenan and Medeiros in wards 3 and 4, and Councillor Santos and Vasante, particularly in the downtown, this has been maybe the biggest issue about this plethora of illegal rental units. And that type of environment flourishes when there's a lack of supply. One of the best ways to counteract that beyond bylaw is a competitive rental market, which we don't have in Brampton. I had someone come to my office, wrote a letter and then called and said he's got $2,400 to pay for a month. They can't get a place to rent. And that is a failure of our rental market in the city. But I think there's a lot of interest. We had that workshop. We had a number of significant players in the rental apartment industry say they were willing to invest hundreds of millions of dollars if we had this incentive program. The other reason I'm really interested in what Councillor Pelletier mentioned for housing and what we have before us today is the province has gone around handing out Building Faster Ontario checks. Remember when we got that check last year? Well, we're not getting it this year because we were, 60% of our target. We need to be 80%.
That's right.
And so this incentive program, I think, could spur enough housing that will make sure that we're not in that position next year. We get that check. So from a revenue perspective, one, it qualifies us for provincial funds. Number two, I broke down this example. I've had a number of different groups come in to try to meet with the planning commissioner myself. And we had one group that came in recently, AmDev. And they purchased all those beat up houses from 17 to 29 Mill Street and 50 Nelson Street. And so they're beat up, dilapidated houses. We don't get development charges if it just stays as a dilapidated housing stock. Our revenue actually increases if they build something and we get significant impact assessment and property taxes from that. And so I think sometimes with finance, we look at what we'd be getting from development charges on a building, but we forget the fact that we'd be getting nothing. And they were very clear to us. They're doing nothing under the current market. So when Councillor Pelletier says 0 of 0 is 100% bang on. In the proposal we have before us, they're actually getting money. We're not only getting more property taxes, but for the 1 and 2 bedrooms, you're getting a percentage of those development charges that you'd never get. I was also blown away by a presentation I got from the Daniels group that I believe Councillor Santos and maybe Councillor Brar got briefed on as well, about how they wanted to partner with women's shelters in the city to provide targeted housing. And so I think there's a ton of opportunity right now to get rental housing, but I think we're in a moment of time. We've got the regional incentives that are at play until November. You match that with our incentives. Condo market right now is dead, to be blunt. 24,000 plus condo units not being sold in the GTA. Oversupply has resulted in all major developers saying right now is this moment in time where we're really looking at rental because we see the vacancy needs. And so I think we want to seize this opportunity that is matched by these regional incentives. And so I love where Commissioner Ganesh has gone, but I have a new motion I want to put on the floor that sort of merges proposal 2 and 3. And this was some of the feedback I got from council reflected this. I know Councillor Vasante, who's sick right now, said he would love to make sure if you have a grocery store at the bottom of the rental building, that is not something that would be discouraged. He says a coffee shop or a grocery creates that all in one community. And I know Councillor Power mentioned to me yesterday that he wants to see it to be more ambitious. And so I think number 2 and 3 both have ambitious aspects of it, and this would blend both of them, but not remove the employment which we know we want. I think one of the options took that out. Why not have both? Both the push for 2 bedrooms and the push for mixed use, to say that that maximum incentive would be available for both the 3 bedrooms and if you did 2 bedroom and had mixed use on the podium. So this is a starting motion for council to discuss, but it blends recommendations 2 and 3.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. We do have Councillor Santos on the board. Thank you through you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mayor Brown, for the motion. Happy to support it. And a quick question to staff. The majority of the housing that is being developed in the city of Brampton right now, is it purpose-built rental or is it something else?
Through the chair, through to you to Councillor Santos, council might recall that from the council workshop material that's also appended to the staff report, the majority of our housing supply right now is filled by ARUs, so additional residential units. That does keep us, as a disadvantage to the city in terms of meeting net new housing targets, as the mayor alluded to receive money from the provinces we have in the past.
And we don't collect DCs on additional residential units. We don't collect extra property taxes from additional residential units. Just to confirm, is that correct?
Through the chair, through to you, Councillor Santos, that's absolutely correct, yes.
And the reason why this motion that is on the screen right now is also important, in addition to collecting property taxes on purpose-built rental, is because that I know in the ward I represent, which is currently in the RRL pilot program, we have seen for many years, including in wards 1, 3, and 4, Councillor Keenan Medeiros' wards, so many issues related to ARUs, illegal rentals, and we are trying to make it right for the surrounding areas in those communities by enforcing them through RRL. But guess what? That costs property taxes too in order to enforce those rentals. So when you look at what is being developed, the majority of the housing net new stock that's being developed in Brampton in the form of ARUs, it's actually costing us money. It's costing us money. And when I did my rounds in speaking to some folks in the development community to get their feedback about this incentive, they said to me, Councillor Santos, one of the biggest competitors that we have in order to put shovels in the ground is actually the resale market. The resale market, which is then turning over the properties into additional residential units and either illegal rentals or being part of the RRL program. And so I think particularly in the areas near major transit station areas where there are existing applications, perhaps for condo development, which now we could put perhaps shovels in the ground for purpose-built rental. This is something that we really have to do immediately. And I know that Councillor Keenan has been doing tremendous work in trying to push the province to put a pause on ARUs in certain concentrated areas in Brampton. We haven't heard anything yet from the province in that regard. However, perhaps our efforts to incentivize safe, purpose-built rentals by reducing the DCs may actually be a way forward for us to shift the market over to purpose-built rentals instead of relying on ARUs. And so after this motion, Councillor Keenan and myself also have an additional motion to push for further advocacy, emphasizing this new piece that the City of Brampton is leading on with respect to discounts on DCs. Thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, when we're done with this, if we could put on that next motion, that would be great. Thank you, Councillor Santos. Councillor Keenan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to start off this DC conversation by giving kudos to the Chair of Planning, Councillor Peleshi, and the Mayor for kind of pulling this all together from the get-go, looking at how we can reduce DCs, across the board, and then, really diving a little bit further into what is the actual needs right now, and then obviously keeping the conversation open that we found the need for, purpose-built rental, but, as Councillor Peleshi always does, making sure that we don't close the door on those other options. So kudos to everybody on that. And, Councillor Santos made some very good points about the ARUs. and look forward to more advocacy when that comes forward. I'm extremely happy to support this motion put forward by the mayor. I do have a question. And I know that we treat affordable rentals and purpose-built rentals separately. In my conversations with a lot of the purpose-built rental, because of the CMHC funding that is available to make it possible for them to build these at a lower rate, they have to incorporate a 20% affordable piece into it. A lot of them are doing it. I believe Daniels might be one of them that put the 20% in theirs. Is there any portion of this, or I'm not sure what we do with DCs for affordable, but is there any portion of this that should touch on the affordable portion? If they do a 2-bedroom affordable, it's 100%, or are we just good keeping it the way it is? And I guess that's more of a question to the mayor, but it would be to the commissioner. Is that separate? Do those DCs treated separately?
Through the chair, through you, Councillor Keenan. So through Bill 23, that piece of legislation already exempted affordable housings from DCs, but I'll just look to the treasurer getting a nod. So that's
Yeah. Okay. So that was kind of a mute point. Thanks for that. So I'm happy to support it. Now, just on Councillor Paleshi's point, I don't know if we're adding it to this or you're doing a separate motion or just direction friendly. Okay. So my question is going to be around the timelines, and I know we're saying to bring this back when it comes when we're bringing that. When is that supposed to come?
through the chair. We're targeting the September 24th council meeting to bring this material back for council's ratification.
Okay, and the only reason I outline it is if they are going to if you are trying to piggyback on the regional DCs, they only have until December to put that in. So I think people who are currently sitting and haven't done anything with the regional DCs because it's maybe not enough will join the two together and probably build. So I don't know if the timeline still works, but I would be very cautious of the December 2026 regional portion of this because it'll only give them a month or so to do both if they're not currently applying to the regional one. And I'm sure if people are already applying to the regional one, they're going to scoop up on this anyway because it's additional. But I think it would help. So I don't know if that timeline needs to change or not. I'm just throwing it out there because I think it's something to look at. That's all from me. I'm happy to support the motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Keenan. Councillor Tour, you have the floor.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Steve, you and your team and staff have done a great job on this. Theoretically, I like this idea, even at the region as well. But there's a few things where I'm not 100% convinced on. At the region, there was a caveat that we go and advocate to the province, and if the province is going to backstop us. It's going to come to a future regional meeting in October, apparently, at some point, and that's when we decide if it goes till November 2026. The language has been tricky. It may still go all the way to November 2026 regardless. Have we heard from the province? Has there been any conversations that our city folk may be aware of? I don't know if that's the region that's doing them.
Through the chair, through to you, Councillor Tor, I'm not aware of any signal from the province about that financial backstop. Certainly didn't come up at AMO.
Okay. And to me, that's not a good sign. Adding on top of the fact that we're not going to get that provincial housing money this year because we're not meeting targets that are not in our control. Like we're approving so many more thousands of housing units every year, but we're not the ones building them. So we're not getting those dollars either. When you look at the presentation, there were the financial implications that were highlighted in those. Part of that is who's paying for the growth-related infrastructure. This is great that it's bringing DCs that we currently don't have. If you're building nothing, you're getting nothing. But again, like to pay for that additional growth, that extra growth, it's still going to come out of somewhere. We're already have seen these shortfalls in infrastructure funding at the city, at the regional level as well. What's the plan to address that, the growth-related infrastructure? How are we going to be funding that, given that the province hasn't come out with anything?
Through the chair, maybe I'll start and then I'll turn it over to our treasurer. The council might recall when staff presented on Bill 17, part of that presentation had a list of all of the capital projects that were DC funded. And in that list, there was some discussion as to what projects may have to be either deferred, paused, or shifted to a later year. that would obviously pose a problem with complete communities as this council's advocated for. But I'll turn it over to Nash if he wants to supplement.
Through the chair, Councillor, as part of the budget process that's upcoming now, will actually, based on all the decisions that council make, we will do our best projections and forecasts for what that means for our DC revenues over the next year and so on. And we have to review our overall capital program funded through DCs in order to make sure that we match both sides together. And that will also be coming to council for approval as part of that budget process.
Okay, no, thank you for that answer, Nash. But that's just where my concern sits on. This is great, theoretically, really helps the housing industry, the market, to incentivizes them to come out, pull permits, and get building. But when you look at overall in the city, still wondering like who's going to end up paying for that bill. And if we're not hearing from the province, even at the regional level, I still have the same hesitation here. So unless this had a caveat to it that said, you know, we see a check from the province, or we have a positive discussion coming from the Ontario government that we will be getting the lost revenue, if they would be funding any of that, I would 100% support this. But without that, this is just, for me, it's not supportable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tour. We have Councillor Palashi on the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to Councillor Keenan's referring about the date, and I think that's what I was talking about when for the December 2026 date for the region, that was the date that I was kind of punting over to staff to say where should we be, and what should we make occupancy to, and I don't know if the region had that date about the occupancy or not, but I think our date should be reflected around there, but I leave it up to staff. Also, when I talk about the difference between what I'm trying to do here and what the region has done, one, we'll actually know what the dollars are when it comes down to it. Two, it's more of a sprinkling across the city rather than, you know, gangbusters. Anybody who can get it, you know, take advantage of a reduction gets the reduction, and it's a whole fight, and not really a fight. It's just, you know, giving money away. It's like Oprah Winfrey, and just everybody gets a DC reduction. This is different. If it's the number of units right across the city of Brampton, then, you know, you do look at how does that impact, you know, when we talk about what the cost is for those neighborhoods. You know, you talk specifically about the downtown, and when you're adding units in the downtown, well, guess what? You're not getting another park. You're not really getting anything more putting into the community other than units. You know, you do get the taxes, which we've never really actually looked at, but we certainly need to understand, you know, what the additional revenue is for the units. But I think that when we're talking about specific number across the city, you know, it's more controllable, and it also puts it out to the industry to say, you know, put your best foot forward, and kind of sell the pitch of how many units that you're going to get, and then, you know, that's doing it rather than saying, you know, developer A gets this number, developer B. It's what are you, and what I want to see is, what are you going to do for the residents that are buying that house? How is this going to, you know, what we're going to get the reduction. We're giving you a reduction. But what else are you doing, right? What else is there? And put your best pitch forward for more opportunity for the residents, and also, you know, for community. If you're going to build a community, if you're using these units for a community, then what else? You know, are you going to be implementing in that community? You look at Heritage Heights, where, you know, this wouldn't impact. You know, nobody in Heritage Heights would get this, what I'm talking about, because nothing is registered. And, you know, maybe there's a future opportunity in Heritage Heights that, you know, there's other opportunity where we need actual resources. We need what Councillor Tour is saying, and Councillor Tour needs stuff in the East End. But what, we're looking at in this area is maybe there's other top opportunities where you can build other stuff. We're looking at parks, we're looking at stormwater management ponds, burying them and putting parks on top of them, making more parkland for residents. But this, what I'm suggesting here, unfortunately, it doesn't impact, that development that we're experiencing in particular. This is more so that, anything that's registered that isn't gone to market because of the market. So I hope that captured, and just talking about the dates, that year to date, but I asked staff to look at what the region has done and how do we align to make sure that there's, one, I look at staff to say how, to make sure that there's no any double dipping. There's no ways that any developer can finagle their way around something. There's always somebody that can find a loophole, but I'm really punting this off to staff to say, close those loopholes. I don't want any, for sure.
Yeah, through the chair, through to Councillor Pelletier, noted, and we'll certainly do our best. Just to give council a sense of context, based on the latest data, the amount of units the city has in our development pipeline that are ready for building permit issuance is 45,934. So just shy of 46,000 units that could go at any time. So when you think about a potential program, as Councillor Pelletier suggested, this could move the needle on 5,000 of that across the city.
Thank you, Councillor Pelletier. Mayor Brown.
Just wanted to answer some of the questions that were brought up. Councillor Tour asked about the backstop. At the Big City Mayor's meeting with Minister Flack, he announced that appeal guinea pig that we are, that backstop details would be coming out in the fall. And so he said, and we believe we're building something in Peel that can be replicated across the province. But he did make that commitment that it would be coming in the fall. The reason I don't believe a backstop is required here, not that we turned it down, but we did some budget analysis on this. These residents are already here. They're using transit, they're using fire, they're using policing, they're using recreation, and we have no tax revenue for basement apartments. One, these buildings, these houses that are torn down for the purpose of a rental apartment would actually create property tax, a revenue stream for the city to pay for these services. It would also qualify us for the Building Faster Fund. And if you look at groups, if you look at the cities that qualified this year, they're qualified on the basis of rental apartment construction. You look at the investment that Skyline did in Barrie. They qualified this year because they built rental, and that was one of the groups that was here. And so I want us to qualify. I want us to get property tax. I don't want us to have 200,000 in a residence in basement apartments. And so I think this incentive program, hopefully, I say hopefully, I don't want to, hopefully catches some interest. And so I think it's fair to say the uptake in Mississauga for the similar incentive program has been low. And so it is a shaky market. So we hope this works, but I think we all have our eyes wide open that there is a lack of confidence right now in the housing market to spend new money. We're hearing pledges that they will. We've had a number of groups say they will, but I think it's very much still a shaky market. And so if this incentivizes some, that's wonderful. But it is, there's a lack of confidence, I think is fair to say. I did want to add in, Councillor Pelletier requested some additional information for the development charges review report, and I would take that request as a friendly with this motion. And so if we could add that wording in, because I don't see it right now. So maybe Councillor Pelletier will speak to the clerk on the side to make sure that that is added into the bottom of the motion. And it'll probably take a few minutes or less to wordsmith that. So we'll give. Oh, there's not. If I was the last speaker, I was going to keep on talking for you to give you time to write it. But since Councillor Tour is here, I'm hoping he'll say he now agrees with the rest of us, and let's get building.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Councillor Tour.
I agree with Mayor Brown's spirit. Just talking about loopholes and what Councillor Pelletier was talking about, just to piggyback off of that, maybe should have been a question at the workshop. The 25-year rental part, how do we, how does that work out?
Through the chair, I'll start, maybe turn it over to Melinda for any details, but it would be part of the agreement that the builder would enter into the city. And of course, as part of our program design, we would have to monitor that to make sure that it stays in that rental tenure for the 25 years. We'd obviously have to build in some clawback type clauses prior to issuing that deferral agreement, but I'll turn it over to staff if there's any additional information. I'm seeing staff not in the right direction, so.
Okay. Like what kind of like clawbacks would that be? Like I'm just throwing a scenario out there. Somebody gets a 100% discount on DCs. 10 years later, it's no longer rental. What happens? Like what mechanisms do we have? Like how do we do something about this?
Through the chair, Councillor, we could, through the legal agreement, we could put clauses there where, for example, if the condition is not met, those DCs that have been forgiven at the time will be added to their property taxes going forward, or we'll have to go through the details of how that would work, but we will find a way where this will still have to be clawed back, that it's given. We did something, we're now implementing something similar for the office DCs incentives. So we'll be looking at the mechanisms that we've been using there and see how that applies in this case. But we'll still have to work through that.
Okay. I don't have too much confidence till I see that language once down the line. But in any case, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tour. We're just waiting for some friendly amendments for the motion.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Just supplemental to that, there are some other instruments, potentials. There's Section 118 of the Land Titles Act, which prevent conveyance to a third party. I imagine we would get some pushback because in case one owner is selling to another owner, but there are some other mechanisms that we could look into. We can also do a forgivable loan, assuming that we're going to have an eventual update to the community improvement plan. I know that the idea of this is to do it without it. And so where a portion is forgiven for each year that it remains a rental, something along those lines. But.
Thank you so much. And we do have a motion on the floor. It's just we did some friendly amendments that have to be added. We'll just take a couple of minutes. Deputy Mayor.
Mostly everything, sort of the issues or the pros and cons have been discussed. I will be supporting this. One thing I do like, and I want to thank staff, is the staggering of 50% to 75 to 100 for 3-bedroom. I've been saying over the years at council how there's a shortage of 3-bedroom units and 4-bedroom units, and I do like that part of this because we want to incentivize developers in particular to start building 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom, especially when it comes to more density. So I'll be supporting that, but I like this hybrid solution, and I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is there a motion, Madam? We'll wait for Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Ganesh, I think it was important, I'll put it on the record. I asked Commissioner Ganesh earlier today, what if someone decided to turn their house into a rental building and use that some loophole where then it would then incentivize what we don't want to incentivize, which is large illegal units. And Commissioner Ganesh assured me that the way this is written, that would not be possible. Maybe you could elaborate on that.
Through the chair, through to you, to Mayor Brown and members of council, this program is designed for apartments only. Certainly when we come back on the 24th with our program eligibility, we'll specify that.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're okay. We have a motion on the floor, moved by Mayor Brown. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Now, do any other members have any questions regarding this section? Perfect, Madam Clerk. Councillor Santos.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, there was also that additional motion in regards to this report as it relates to ARUs. And both Councillor Keenan and I are bringing this forward together. Essentially, the whereas is just talking about what I shared earlier about ARUs being a predominantly the reason why we're getting additional housing in Brampton. And as we struggle with not being able to collect the DCs from them or property taxes from them, the fact that we have just passed that motion on discounts for purpose-built rentals should be another reason why the province should support our efforts to put some sort of pause or put under our control the number as well as the quality of the ARUs that are being applied for at the City of Brampton. So if I could just bring it down to the therefore be it resolved. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Brampton requests the province to reverse their aggressive ARU legislation and policy and allow the city to govern the amount and location of ARUs in a manner that ensures compatibility with infrastructure capacity, service delivery, and neighborhood context, including a pause on ARUs in concentrated areas to further incentivize purpose-built rental development in these areas. So as I was saying earlier, in speaking with many of the developers for their feedback about our incentive program that we just passed, they did share with me that one of their biggest competitors is ARUs and illegal rental units. So just another additional reason why Councillor Keenan's advocacy to put some sort of a pause, particularly in these concentrated areas, might be important. So it's an advocacy motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. We have a motion on the floor, moved by Councillor Santos and Councillor Keenan. Councillor Keenan, recorded vote has been requested. All in favor? Go ahead. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Chair, with the motion as shown on the screen and explained by Councillor Santos, there's been a call for recorded vote. Would all members in favor of this motion please stand? And we have Councillor Santos, Councillor Pelletier, Councillor Keenan, Mayor Brown. All those opposed? We have Deputy Mayor Singh, excuse me, Councillor Powell, Councillor Toole, and Councillor Brown. That's the advocacy one, and we have 2 online. Councillor Vicente, how do you vote?
In favor.
And Councillor Fortini, how do you vote?
In favor.
And Councillor Medeiros? How do you vote, Councillor Medeiros?
In favor.
And that motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you. Now, do any members have any questions regarding this section? Thank you very much. Now, Madam Clerk, do we have any questions online or in person?
To you, Chair, there are no questions online. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to Public Works. Our Vice Chair, Councillor Keenan. There's no questions. Okay, go ahead.
call a question period? Okay.
Yes.
Hello, so the question is, does council remember that in the planning meeting for July, there was a rental conversion bylaw brought forward that would require that if you wanted to convert a rental to a condo, in order to do that, you would either have to have the rental vacancy rate be above 3% for 3 consecutive years, or the rents of the units would need to exceed 1.75 times the market rent, which means if it qualified for the affordable rentals, you would be unable to comply for that. And therefore, the July motion brought forward at the planning meeting would by itself prevent someone from pocketing the DCs by converting it 10 years later.
Thank you. Do we have any staff that's willing to answer, or?
Through the chair, if I understand correctly, I believe the delegate is speaking to the residential rental report that was just brought forth for a public meeting. Staff are still reviewing input on that. We'll be bringing back a final report later this year.
The second question is, does staff and council understand that when a developer says ARUs mean the projects don't pencil out, what they're saying is the projects will not pencil out unless rents rise more. And so a motion to try to stop ARUs to build housing necessarily means you're endorsing we need to make market rates go up until they can build more housing. And so that creates a new higher floor for rental. So it's a case of what you're doing there is we need to make sure they can rent for more instead of dealing with the underlying issue of the costs to build housing are such that they cannot build at market rentals. Does council and staff understand the implications of the advocacy motion that you're doing?
Thank you for your question, and I don't see any other comments here. Councillor Tour?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, just quickly on that, yes, Sylvia, I agree with you on that. Like, if you're trying to advocate to control one type of housing mix, it does have an impact on rental rates across the city.
Councillor Plushy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can just say that, I'll probably speak on behalf of all council, no developer has ever mentioned ARUs to any of us. Thank you.
Councillor Santos?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Just to say that I spoke to a few people who mentioned that the resale of homes and the conversion into rentals is a competitor for theirs when it comes to purpose-built rentals. And also want to add that ARUs and residential rentals and illegal rentals in particular do not collect property taxes. So whether or not the market rate of rentals goes up or not, at the end of the day, the property taxpayers are paying for the consequences of illegal rentals in the city of Brampton.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to our Public Works and Engineering section.
Okay, we're in the Public Works and Engineering section. So we had 11. Said hold all of Public Works. What I may consider doing is 11.2.3 first, only because it's about the can everyone hear me okay? Okay. It's due to the date. So if we do 11.2.3 first, which is just the date from the that we'll be taking waste collection from the region appeal. Do we want to do that one first and then dive into the actual contract aspect of it? Okay, everyone works? Okay, so who, okay. So we're gonna go with 11.2.3, who held it? My bad. The recommendation to update the transition date for the transfer of waste collection services to October 1st, 2027. They held, it was all in the, is there a delegation for it? Oh, okay. Okay, so if we have no questions on that one, I'll have Councillor Tour, receive the, is it a recommendation? Okay, Councillor Tour, you good with that? Okay, moved by Councillor Tour. All those in favor? That carries. Okay, we'll go to 11.2.1, staff report to begin procurement for waste collection services for Brampton and Caledon for a period of 8 years with 2 additional 1-year option renewal periods. This was also held for delegation. Is there any questions here from council? No? Okay, so we have this moved by Councillor Power. All those in favor? The motion carries. 11.2.2, which is requested procurement for the maintenance services of traffic signals for a 3-year period. 2 additional 1-year and 1-year optional renewal periods. This was also held for the delegation. Do any councillors have any questions on this? Councillor Tour.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Not really a question, but if staff can consider one thing, just read upon this and last week or so in Boston, the city of Boston working along with Bloomberg to implement AI tech to optimize signal times, especially for school buses. Looking at what needs to get a priority. If you saw the news yesterday too, traffic jams across Ontario with school being back in action. So I think that's something we should consider in a implementation phase. I don't know if it necessarily changes how the procurement happens here, but that's something we should definitely consider, that whatever we go forward with, we can, down the line, we're able to implement something that may have worked in another city, to explore that, to look at that, and if that can make our traffic flow better. There's a dollar value, can't remember from the top of my head, but on how much time you lose on the roads, especially as a student that's going to school. If you're spending an hour in bus going to school and back, the impact that it has on school kids. So I would just say that please do take that into consideration so that we can also be a model city, perhaps in Canada, when it comes to this.
Thank you, Councillor Tour. Councillor Paleshi.
Well, I would like to punt it over to Peter to talk about actually what we're already doing. And just listening to Councillor Tour, it's been a really long time since we had an update, but the implementation of AI in the city of Brampton right now is ongoing. Maybe Peter, can we maybe circle back to council? Can we bring an update on it's been a while since we had the rollout, and can we get some information on that?
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Paleshi, we can certainly bring back an update to council. We do continue to look at ways to leverage technology to both your points in order to improve traffic flow across the city. And certainly we can bring an update with respect to what we're doing with various detection devices and so forth.
Perfect.
Thank you, Councillor Paleshi. So is that just a direction? Yeah. Peter, you'll take that as direction, Commissioner? Yeah? Okay. Thanks. Okay, so we have, is there any more questions? No more? Okay, so we have this one moved by Councillor Paleshi. All those in favor? That carries. So that brings us to, okay, discussion item by me for road work. Okay. So, you want to go first? No, you go. Okay. Thank you, Councillor. So this is just really briefly, obviously, I've had lots of conversations with staff on this. And, we talk about the Queen Street construction and all the chaos that it's caused for all the residents for forever. And we have Main Street. Just over the past few weeks, towards the end of summer there, we also ripped up and did a resurfacing of McLaughlin, which we boxed in an entire community in construction. So we got lots of complaints around that, which led to some questions where I thought, there was a motion that was passed, I don't know if it was or wasn't, about if we're doing construction on a arterial road north and south, we can't do the adjoining one east and west. So more of a scheduling. I've talked to staff about looking at that, and they're willing to correct those concerns. So that being the number one kind of issue that I have, but, you know, it raised some more questions for me in particular, as to why we're resurfacing some of the roads that we're resurfacing, why we're doing curbs that we're doing, why we're doing sidewalks that we're doing. You know, the commissioner will say almost every morning, I message him on my walk about a new sidewalk or curb that's going in and wondering why we're doing it. And for my understanding, a lot of it has to do with how long they've been there, and whatever the process may be. And I think of this when we look at our budgets and we're looking at making sure that we're maintaining stuff, is a lot of the stuff we do and we renew is based on a time period or a usage, or, and I think in conversations with Mayor Brown, I know he just stepped out, but maybe the opportunity to look at extending the life on a lot of things, our roads, our sidewalks, curbs, vehicles, you know, buses, fire trucks, fleet vehicles as a whole. So I don't know where I go with this, if it's going to be asking for a report back on how we could extend that across the organization. It's more of a budget thing, so I think the mayor may want to be involved in this conversation. But when it comes to roads and sidewalks in particular, I know that in the last budget cycle, we had discussed a lot of the roads that were on there, and we cut them by 50%, and we were going to go back out to the councilors to see which roads in their areas need to be done. Having said that, I'm fully aware that there was an issue in with the 2024 resurfacing or 2023, and a lot of those roads were carried over, and that's why McLaughlin got done. So I'm not specifically talking about McLaughlin. But Peter, maybe if you could just talk quickly about what the process is for our roads and our sidewalks, and how we're going to be addressing that.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Keenan, the staff do conduct an assessment. They do condition assessments before any decision to rehabilitate or replace any infrastructure is done. We'll ensure that that is a rigorous assessment that's done. To your point, going forward in terms of where we are from a budget perspective, it's going to be only infrastructure that absolutely needs to be replaced from a life cycle perspective. That's going to be on the list for rehabilitation going forward. And certainly from a coordination perspective, we'll ensure that there's a very rigorous process to make sure that any construction, any major construction is sequenced and phased in such a way that it really minimizes disruption and delayed for a year if it's necessary, in order to not cause too much congestion within a certain corridor or neighborhood.
Yeah, so I'll take it a step further. I'm going to ask for you to provide us a report on what that standard is, and what a recommendation to be, maybe how far we are able to push that. So if I could have that report come back to council, I think that would be appreciated. And I'll ask for you for anything in public works that has to do with that type of renewal, whether it is fleet. No, I'm going to let the mayor deal with everything else if he so chooses, or if council, it's the will of council to do so. But I'll stick with roads, sidewalks, and curbs for this particular report.
The chair, we can report back on that.
Thank you. Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's upsetting that, you know, when council moves a motion to say that in this circumstance, you cannot do construction on a road that's next to another road, and that wasn't followed. Really, really disappointed. The impact that has on other roads, north or south, in this case, in particular, Queen and Williams Parkway, the impact that this has not only on Beauvais, but Sandalwood, and also Wanless, because Mayfield's under construction, is really, it's really devastating for the people that live not only in that area but use those roads for commute. And then on top of that, we have a major transit yard on Sandalwood, and it seems to be during rush hour traffic, where that's probably that shift change, that a ton of buses are going out in the direction of traffic, and they're out of service using, and sometimes, you know, they have to get to where they're going, but we also need to look at other ways that they can get there. When I look at a bus on Sandalwood, east of Hurontario, if it's out of service, as far as I'm concerned, it's a truck, and no trucks are allowed on that road. So it has to be, it should be using Beauvais, or it should be going up to Mayfield. So maybe something that we can put a pin in and discuss, if you don't mind. But going back to these other roads, on Williams Parkway in particular, when this thing's done, I expect Williams Parkway to be like made of gold, because of the amount of time it's taking them to do it and what they're actually doing. I've never seen so much construction in one particular, and they're only done the south side of the road. I think now they have to go to the north side and do that. So I need to understand what's going on in Williams Parkway, because they're just ripping out everything. What did it need? It needed some bus stops, and it needed a new pavement, some new paving. Like, we ripped out every single curb. What was wrong with the curbs? And if that's had to do with, going back to what council didn't approve way back when, the expansion, and it was beautifying Williams Parkway, I'm fine with it. But also I'd like to understand what does that beautification actually mean, and why was it done when Queen Street was being done? I'd like to understand that as well. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So I think I'll quickly, I've had conversations with the mayor over this regardless. So I think I am going to extend it for the life of all vehicles in the city of Brandon. Anything, so from fire trucks to buses to our regular fleet. Give the report to include what are the current standards that for the shelf life of the vehicles, and what a recommendation may be to extend that by 2-3+ years. Mayor Brown.
I speak in favor of this motion. I'd love to see the staff report comparisons, because I do get feedback from residents, and they'll be surprised that a road is resurfaced or a sidewalk is resurfaced when they thought it was in adequate shape. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some times where they are pleading for the resurfacing. Just this morning, we had Orlando approach Councillor Torr and myself about industry and jobs at risk because of the countryside resurfacing. And so I get there are times where there's an acute need, but there seems to be some where I don't have the answer of why it was resurfaced. So I'd love to look at that life cycle report that Councillor Keenan's requested. In terms of the vehicles too, we donate vehicles at end of life to other areas, and they're good enough for other areas to use. Does that not beg the question, could we not have extended the life further? And so there may be reasonable explanations for all of this. Would love to see that in the report.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Councillor Pelletier.
Just on fire trucks, often I think there's opportunities where we get money back for donating the truck somewhere else. Maybe if you can just reference something, not in the report when it comes back, Bill, if you can pass it off to maybe the new chief that I just met this morning, to come to council and to talk about what we do in terms of those fire trucks where they're the end of life, but they're not end of life, and then they go up to the northern communities or they go somewhere else that typically can't afford a fire truck. But there's also federal, I think, dollars or maybe provincial funds also.
Excuse me, through the chair to Councilor Pelletier, we can bring that back. Those are end of life as per NFPA guidelines. We don't donate anything that has any lifespan. We use them for a certain period of time as a frontline truck, then as a secondary truck. Anything that's donated is completely at end of life within Ontario regulations. It's only in communities in dire need that have nothing that might take those.
Right.
But we can bring that back and bring the new chief next week as well.
Okay. Thanks, former chief.
Thank you, and there's no more questions, so we have a motion on the screen moved by myself. The staff be requested a report on the renewal cycle and process for roadways, curbs, sidewalks, bicycle paths, and also city fleet vehicles with respect to the current standards of vehicle lifespan and the potential of extending lifelines for all items. All those in favor? The motion carries. I think that's it, guys. We go into councillor question period. Do any councillors have any questions? Seeing none, public question period. Is there any members of the public online or in the audience?
Through the chair, there are no questions online.
Perfect. I will now pass it over to Councillor Santos for community service section. What's the item? What item? Oh, it's the. No? Madam Chair. No, it's, I referred that motion. Mhm. The next one is, section item for 12.3.3, section item for the event itself, for the events at Gage Park. So this would just be really brief. Obviously, the downtown is, we're trying to make it vibrant and have as many events as possible. Got a lot of complaints over the summer for the people that are in the surrounding area for their enjoyment on the weekends, because we have festivals going Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every weekend. Is it good? Okay. The people in the neighborhood are just complaining about, you know, not being able to use their own backyard and their own pools because of all the continuous noise. And then they receive a letter saying these are the events coming at Gage Park, and then we infill other events that weren't on that list. And they're just, you know, kind of complaining about the noise constantly. So I'm just going to ask if staff can, you know, report back on, you know, how we can communicate a little bit better to the residents for those events that are coming, as well as maybe looking at the times in which we allow and the decibel levels that we allow to happen at Gage Park. I know with the square being redone, a lot of that's going to maybe shift, as well as people looking for the enjoyment of the park for being a park and not really wanting an event. But anyways, just if we can just have some communication that I can share with the residents, it'll be a little bit more to the point of this is what we're having there and it's going to stick to that. But I really want to stress Sundays being a key component to the time that we allow events to run till.
Sure, Councillor, we can take that away and bring back some options for council to consider.
Thank you, appreciate it. I believe that's everything in this section. Do any members have any questions in this section? I'm seeing none. Is there any questions from the public?
There's no questions online, sir.
Perfect. So referred matters list. Any members? Is that where we are now? Do we have closed session, right? Oh, that's 15. Okay. Referred matters list. Do any members have any questions or comments regarding the referred matters list? Seeing none. Public question period. We're now the final public question period. There's a 15-minute limit for all questions and answers this meeting. I'll ask the clerk, is there any questions submitted online during the course of today's meeting?
There are no questions online, Chair.
Okay, so closed session. We have one item added by Councillor Paleshi for closed session. We have a motion moved by Councillor Tour to go into closed session. All those in favor? That carries. Madam Clerk, how long do you need? 10 minutes. What time is it now? We will meet in closed session at 2:21. Okay. Great, so we have quorum. So in the continuing interest of transparency and open government, I will report in public session any outcomes from today's closed session business. As a result of our closed session today, I wish to report that item 15.1 was considered in closed session and direction was provided to staff. That brings us to item 16, adjournment. Committee is next scheduled to meet Wednesday, September 17th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. I have a motion moved by Councillor Brar to adjourn today's meeting. All in favor? The motion carries. Thanks, everybody.